On this evening's agenda, we'll be discussing employee handbook and social media policies, layout for Old Peterborough Road, inspection and transfer station fees, then we have old and new business, and a non-public session. So before we start, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you have any remarks, anything public, why don't we jump right to the employee handbook and the social media policy.
Have you had a chance to take a look through it?
Yes, the employee handbook, I just checked this, from my last comments, and those were all addressed, so
Okay,
I was good with what you have there.
all right.
The social media policy.
Yep.
Since I'm waiting to find my notes, John, if you had any comments.
I actually didn't.
None?
No, not really.
I had big picture concern with it, period, is that when we had discussed the use of social media, it was to provide the residents with another venue where they could get information, we could release it.
Mm-hmm.
The way this is structured, the way I'm reading it, it's also then to have a way of monitoring it for responses back. And that was not how I foresaw this ever going, that it was strictly going to be a one-way communication.
So, the reason I left that aspect of it in there is if we do decide to change the policy as technology evolves, et cetera. What happens in a lot of towns, and I think what we're doing today, I think with our Facebook site, is basically limiting the ability for people to comment. So you can't turn it into a discussion, it is just pushing information out, not necessarily using it as a vehicle for people to provide input or feedback on a particular subject or topic. So we can still control whether there's an opportunity to comment on something or not. That's something that in managing the site we can do. However, the world changes, and often different different comes along, and there may be times where we have a subject where we do want to solicit input. Maybe it's something like the police station project or something like that, where you want to be able to gather information and use that as one way to do it. The challenge with that is having somebody monitoring it all the time, so that if it goes astray, you can clean up some of the inappropriate comments that you might get back. And I don't know that today we're prepared to have somebody, be monitoring this on a daily basis. But that may be something in the future that we might want to consider.
And I agree with Scott on that, is because it talks about where you kind of come down to where you look at comments, things like that. It's really about any official page operated by the town of New Ipswich. So I looked at as the police department's page, the rec department's page, the town page itself. I've seen towns that have ones for like the DPW, and so they can make announcements of things going on, and that this kind of puts that very clearly of we reserve the right to just either block you, delete your comment, block comments on those items that, this isn't a discussion piece, this is an announcement piece. But like where you said, if we want to get some input from people, we can get the input, but at the same point, it doesn't become one of these rampant pages that just becomes mean and nasty
But that's
and
the way
derogatory.
it's going to go, and that's why when it was first proposed, I was against it. And when it was explained, it's just a one-way street, is
Mhm.
how I looked at it.
Mhm.
That's how I will be voting to keep it. And to say, technology changes and whatnot, and it could change,
Mhm.
I'd say, well, when the board at that time agrees to that, that's the policy we should be setting. But at the present time, when I'm looking at the way this is structured, and once it goes into writing, it's in writing, and that's what you
Mhm.
need to go. It could become a two-way street, it could become another person's task to have to monitor it, respond to it, and I don't think the town at this point is set up to be.
Right, then what I would ask, and I can see that at this point, we make all our post announcements, not, but what I'd make sure is that we leave things in there that, make it very clear what we will or will not allow posted on our pages by those people that are administrators of those pages.
Perfect, yeah.
So that you
yeah.
look at it and go, really, you thought that was appropriate?
And it shouldn't be getting posted unless it's by, town administrator directs something, let's get this announcement out. Or a department head.
Right.
Yes. But as I went through this, the first one, and this is just a grammatical thing, is we got programs and events repeated on the third line. But then it says, and to exchange information and knowledge, and I'm saying exchange means we're going both ways. On page 2, scope, it says the policy applies to all town of New Ipswich employees or contractors. And I'm thinking this is strictly a town page, let's say. I wouldn't think that we'd have anybody outside the town utilizing it. And I can appreciate the part about employee comments. But again, if it's a one-way vehicle for communicating, then the only comment should be an official comment.
I guess it'd be, not that we have a lot of contractors, but I guess it'd be one of those things if someone in an official capacity,
Give me an example. What do you mean?
so we hire someone, so say we decide for the DPW, we're gonna, instead of them doing the sand, we're gonna hire someone to do sand for us, okay? So we hire XYZ Trucking, and they're gonna do all our sand for us, cause they got the bigger trucks and they can do it. Well, that person, who is contracted by us, goes on and talks trash about the town as the owner of XYZ Trucking.
But not on the town's
Well,
page.
part of it says it also applies to employees who are commenting about town New Ipswich government operations on public social media sites. So even if he goes on,
That's his First Amendment right. Free speech.
but we can look back at, if this is here, we can look back and go, hey, we're gonna, this is,
We can't tie a contractor to our employee handbook and social media. That would have to be something that's put into a contract, is that
but you could make this part of a contract.
I'm looking at it from, and I'm gonna, just because I don't know all the other social media things, but a Facebook. If the town has a Facebook page, this contractor should have no access at all to
No,
it.
and it's not, but what I'm saying is, he goes on, and I'm trying to be, I don't want to point fingers at
Yeah,
someone.
yeah.
Okay? But I'm just trying to be, someone who is assumed to be fully associated with the town of New Ipswich
Okay.
goes on to their own Facebook page
Mhm.
and, for whatever reason, trashes the town.
Mhm.
Okay? I think that is something we should be able to address.
I think we are stepping down the wrong road with that. What I would say, and let's just say it is that XYZ contractor, is that something the board takes into consideration next time the contract is up? Is that,
So you could have a situation where you have a contracted interim town administrator.
Oh yeah, what's that
So
company?
Which might be there till you backfill the position.
but they are hired and working for the town.
No, you
Well,
hire a
unless
company.
they're
You hire the
contracting
company
for a
that's
company
con-
like MRI or something like
Correct.
that.
Yes, yeah.
Then they would be an employee of MRI, but would be contracted to support the town for a
Mhm.
period of time.
And that remote type scenarios aren't what I'm trying to pinpoint. It's more of a broader picture to say, let's make it simple. It's a one-way communication vehicle. Who's going to control what goes on there?
So all I'm saying is that, based on that, then when we initiate this,
Hmm.
then we have to make sure that any Facebook page associated with the town is locked to that way. Because right now, there are some that are not.
Oh,
There are some that allow comments back.
okay.
An easy one is a rec department. They post something and people will post questions to them about what they just made their announcement about. I believe the fire department also has spots because they'll say something and then people will have comments. So it's one of those things, if we do it that way, then those all have to be locked the same way.
And honestly, I think while we can assume that the world is static, it really isn't. It's dynamic. And I think when you draft a policy like this, you have to be all-encompassing, even though it may be a rare situation. It's better to have it documented somewhere in a policy than to find yourself in a situation where the policy doesn't address it, but you wish it did, and now it's too late. You're better off casting a broader net to make sure that you're covering all the issues so that you have a policy to point to when the situation arises.
The net will never be large enough.
Well, it may not be large enough. I think what we're doing though is we're taking, basically I took what other communities have already done, what they've already vetted through their council, and trying to come up with the one that seemed to be consistent. In fact, some of these, you could tell they've been kind of propagated around to a lot of towns because a lot of them were almost identical because they've kind of gone through this process. And it's, again, I think if you skinny it down too much, then it's not gonna cover all the situations that you can possibly encounter, and that's just problematic.
Right, but the issues that are addressed here are the ones I want to address to say either they're good or I don't think they're beneficial for the town.
Mhm.
Real simple. My concern is not what other towns allow or don't allow. I think that's what the board here needs to look at and say, okay, do we want that to occur in the town of New Ipswich? Do we think it's the best thing for the town? The example I've been focusing on in my mind is what I call the town Facebook page, okay? Not aware that all the other departments have these Facebook pages. With that said, if rec department has one and they're monitoring it and they wanna do, I have no qualms with that two-way
Yeah.
communication.
But we just need
I
to-
was more focusing on the
right.
town office.
And our town office one, I don't think has. I think
I don't know, I don't
I
go
don't
on it,
remember.
I don't know.
I think they might have some, but some things like where if it's just an announcement, I think they lock it or whatever. But I think there have been ones that have been open for comment, but that's
They
when-
shouldn't have been, because
Right.
when we set it up, it
Mhm.
was a one-way.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's
Yeah.
normally when I see it, it's because someone has shared it, or I quickly see it and then I share it again. So like when we're making an announcement for a meeting or something. But that's what I'm saying is if we want the town one locked, then we just that's what the board has said at this time. It's for announcements, and you lock it for comment, and there it's not there. But if we're not going to do that for the other departments, then I think having these other
Right,
pieces.
now we can go through these and say, okay, for departments that are monitoring on their own, then let's look at that and say, okay, this could apply,
Mhm.
keep it in, or it's not gonna apply, take it out.
Mhm.
And again, I would think contractor, no matter what department it is, the only one that would be communicating would be the department head or director, whatever he puts in. I can't,
But your
unless you give me,
your department head could be a contractor. That's on an interim basis. You just,
all right, you gave that example. I said that's,
yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah. It could be. I don't wanna set up a policy personally on could be's that,
Yeah, like I said, I'm trying to be politically correct and not start a stink. There's one that comes to mind, and I don't want to, but I don't know how our putting this in there unless we have it part of a new contract type thing or have it in a contract. I don't know how we would enforce it, but I have one in mind, and
I'm trying to think.
so I'm just trying to be,
Yeah.
because I don't want to say it as a possibility because it's never been an issue, but it's one of those ones of could it become an issue? Could someone get ruffled that has access to the page? I don't know who has that, and I don't even know if they have a page, and that's the other piece. But it's just there's only one that comes to mind. So,
Okay.
but it's however.
So where it says this policy applies to all town of New Ipswich employees or contract employees.
Yeah, so if we just say New Ipswich employees creating or contributing to blogs, wiki, social media, any other kind of town in New Ipswich owned. So you would just have to take out more contractor.
And who are authorized to contribute or post to town of New Ipswich. Applies to employees are commenting about town of New Ipswich governmental operations on public social media sites. Should that not be something to the effect of employees should not be commenting about town of New Ipswich government on town social media sites or whatever you.
So, much like your First Amendment concern is, people have the right to their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
In the policy, it states that if they are on a public site, not the town site, but a
Yeah.
public site, that when they state their own opinion, they have to basically put a disclaimer in there saying that this is not the opinion of the town of New Ipswich.
But
They're
that's another
required
one
to.
further down, and I had it
Right.
highlighted. That's what we're asking them to do, but they don't need to do it.
So actually, they, under a policy, they do need to do it, otherwise they could face disciplinary action if you wanna take it to that step.
And
And I think there are
and again, we're
times-
gonna be into a legal action at that point, and I wanna,
No, but we
mitigate that.
we had one recently that came across that was posted by an employee of the town to do with the TLR event.
on the town's page,
They posted it, shared it to, so that it came up on public pages,
public page, but not the
not the town.
town, okay.
But they are a town official that people would have assumed this was an opinion of a town official. And it was not very well disclaimed.
And, I mean, this is really a fairly gentle approach. Some companies have very strict policies on that, where they will terminate people if they say anything. And there are communities that
Mhm.
will terminate public officials or employees if they say something inappropriate, even on a public site.
But if that were the policy, and they're signing on to that, personally, I would feel better with that than to say, well, when you post, you now need to type in this disclaimer. Nobody's ever gonna do it.
Well, until they get their hands slapped.
There's nothing in here that says that they're subject to termination for,
No, it does say that they're subject to whatever the town's disciplinary policy is.
Yeah, so it's the written or verbal warning, written warning, termination.
again, I gotta have so many highlights on here that I don't know how do we address. Next one, individual users are fully responsible for anything they post and comments, including links, videos, photos, and other materials. And we're saying that if it's a one-way street on the town one, if it's a two-way street on a department
Mm-hmm.
page, how do we determine to them, or I don't wanna say dictate, control, what they're putting on there? I'm thinking we're hiring them or appointing them for that role, that they're gonna be doing that in the best interest of the town.
Well, I look at it as, I understand. See, I look at it as an easy one I can bring up just because it caused confusion when it happened and it wasn't on social media. But when Bert wrote his letter to the editor
Mm-hmm.
and did not sign it Bert Hamill, New Ipswich, but signed it Bert Hamill, Selectman, New Ipswich. Okay? It gave several people the misconception that that was the feeling of the board, not the feeling of a single person, an individual. So, if you go into the comments and say it were me and I start, so someone starts talking, the rec puts up something, and we as a board voted on it. But then I go in as John Vieser and I start putting up stupid little pictures and comments, whatever. People aren't going to assume that that's John Vieser. They're gonna think that's John Vieser selectmen bashing the rec department. Or if it's, a land use clerk that goes on and starts talking about, something, it comes across as that person, as a employee slash official of New Ipswich, stating stuff,
So wouldn't a blanket statement to say employees should not be expressing their personal opinions on town media sites? Because you just brought up a good example. That example you brought up, that was utilizing the print media. We have nothing here to say somebody couldn't do that, And I'm saying, the example you set was, okay, I can correlate it with this, so how would you
but again,
explain it to them?
Again, like for me, like you said, it's a, it's one of those things, and I think another town they got in trouble for it too, where the people went on as officials when they were just their personal opinion, because they didn't put that disclaimer of, I'm writing this as a taxpayer. They wrote the article and 3 people signed it with their official title for the town. And I think that's the piece, is we can't, unless we're gonna make it a blanket thing where you can't comment on anything,
I don't think you can.
which you can't. But what it's stating is, like, even that where he said, in that piece, where it talks about, public, social media sites, where it also applies to employees who are commenting about town New Ipswich governmental operations on public social media sites. That would be the equivalent of one of our town office employees going on to Life in New Ipswich or Life in New Ipswich in Greenville and trashing the way the town's being run. And I'll be honest, whether it be trashing or being
Yeah,
positive,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
unless you're just stating facts, shut your mouth. Don't put it out there. But it's that piece of, when they put when someone makes a comment and they say, they even just put a picture, like, I completely agree with that comment. Well, if that comment was, and not just negative, because negative's negative, we get negative comments all the time, but questionable, meaning, hey, that was inappropriate and you agreed with it, so now it looks like that's how we operate. No, there should be something that needs to be said about that, because if you go to the print media, they're not gonna let you you can't send a inappropriate comment to the newspaper and have it put in there, You can't use foul language or put,
Right.
They're just not gonna put it.
Right.
Social media, yeah, you can put whatever you want. I mean, it literally is the bathroom wall of the world. So I just think we need, it's one of those things, we just need to, if we're gonna do it, and we're not going to put a blanket lock on all the town accounts and things like that, and that we need to make sure that there's an expectation set forth for all the employees, is that,
Then that should just be one item. However it's worded, but not every place I go through here, there's redundancy within it.
Well, I think because some of it is talking about the town sites, and some of it is talking about how a town employee behaves on a public site
Okay.
because of how they are seen, you know. And I think that's the piece, is that you have two pieces in that.
Like right before I came here, I don't know if you watch Channel 9 News, and there's, last night, an issue with a select person that put a comment on social media, and it appeared that the town residents were upset with it. And as the chairman says, we have no control over that. You know, and so we can't say because we have a policy, we can control it, because,
Well, this policy would only apply to employees, it does not apply to,
Doesn't apply to elected officials.
I think I saw something here about public officials, which it should by, don't get me wrong.
yeah, I mean, we don't have any,
Maybe it was the public, social media. Yeah, it says town of New Ipswich heads, both elected and appointed. 3.2.
right, may assign personnel to manage specific social media sites. It's not actually a policy that applies to the elected officials, it just gives the elected officials
Okay.
the authority to appoint somebody. I mean, I think the advantage of the broader policy is we're learning from other people's mistakes, quite frankly. So we're covering the areas that we're not anticipating being an issue, but may be an issue at some point. And if you don't get out in front of it, then you're not gonna be able to manage it when those situations arise.
I'm not saying we can't manage it, Scott. What I'm saying is, this is too ambiguous. You go through it, in numerous areas, things are just being regurgitated in a different format, which as I read it, it's like, you get so confused when you have such a long policy. We wanna make a policy, you don't want something to happen, spell it out. Point blank. This isn't allowed, this is allowed, and this is how we're gonna do it. But when I'm looking at a policy here, that's what, 8 pages, I think? It's, I don't know, how do you condense it to say, this is what we find acceptable, this is not, and these are the consequences? I think that's the whole purpose of a policy, is to, you know, indemnification and hold harmless. I mean, really? That's legal jargon in every
Well,
contract.
there's a reason for it,
And what's the reason?
So in other words, if you're participating on it and you do say something derogatory
Mm-hmm.
to an individual that then wants to sue you for defaming them or slandering them, that becomes your problem. So if we have a department head that says something
Mm-hmm.
on their social media site for their department
Mm-hmm.
that they're gonna get sued for,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes their responsibility to defend their actions, rather than us as,
It will
having the
become
burden.
ours, period. You can say what you want. If they are a town official, employee, volunteer, it's the town.
Yeah.
To ask them to indemnify the town, incur attorney's fees and whatnot, I mean, I just don't see it. This is going, I think, a little too broad. And if there's a way we can bring it in, I do see a need for it, but not as broad as this policy goes.
On some of this, I mean, it's a big policy. I get you on that. But I mean, maybe some of the things could be taken out, like posting, posting times and things like that. But I think there's some of the ones, I'll be honest, I think on like indemnification, hold harmless, stuff like that. I don't know how some of our pages were built. I don't know who the admins are. In my opinion, someone, I don't know whether it be Scott or somebody, there should be a central that is an admin on any town associated page. Reason being, and I'll bring this up, and why that indemnification hold harmless, okay? Only because this happened. An organization I'm involved with had a Facebook page, okay? The person who set it up was the only admin on it, okay? There was a fallout. That person went on and just started writing horrible things on the Facebook page about the group, about people the group had been associated with, all that. And Facebook, it's next to impossible to get a page shut down once it's built. Our church actually had 2 Facebook pages. I think there probably still there's another one out there, and it took us years to get people to stop going to another one, because the admin couldn't remember how to get into the page, so we had to build a new page. But what'll happen is all you need is someone to get mad. Like I said, I don't know who has built some of these Facebook pages, but if someone got mad at the town, they could start doing whatever they wanted, and then without that being signed, yes, you're right, it would come back on the town in a heartbeat, but at least we'd have something to go back on.
And I can understand that. So, number one, town administrator will be co-admin or whatever you call it for every page.
Yeah, but all I'm saying, I mean, and that's how it could be. But then we could have, someone, again, town employee, get mad, create a page. So they could just go, you know what, instead of having, the Old Town Hall Committee makes a page, okay? They make Scott an admin, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Someone gets mad and goes, you know what, fine. Schoolhouse number 1 Facebook page, and they just go off. So they just go home, create a page. You can create a page in minutes.
Okay.
They go home, they create a page. So Scott's not an admin on the page, but we don't have anything on there to hold us non-responsible.
Right. So what you're saying is somebody can go and create a page and call it whatever they want,
Right,
and make it sound like there's nothing against the
right. But if they are, if you do the research and you see who the admin is of the page, and it's just someone off the street who created a fake page, you go, well, that person's not even associated with the town. But if you look at it and go, yeah, that person's on that committee,
Mhm.
you know, or that person was appointed to, or that person holds this position, you've got something to stand on when they, you know,
How's the whole harmless gonna do?
because if they are truly, if they are an employee of the town, they've signed this, then we've got the ability to go, yes, they're an employee of the town, and they're responsible for everything. They are responsible for everything they posted, not the town. We didn't authorize that page. We didn't authorize the page to be made. We didn't authorize them to be the administrator of a page.
Mhm.
So everything they've done is against the social media policy,
Mhm.
and they signed an indemnification, hold harmless. So it gives us something to stand on if someone decides they want to come back into town.
And I would hope that within the employee manual, or just being an employee at will, is that we find your actions intolerable as an employee, we're gonna let you go. And then they can continue on with it.
Right, but what about the people that were hurt by something they may have put on the page? Where do they go?
Same place they go today.
So they take the town to court.
They take the town to court, and town defends it to say, this was a disgruntled person, they went out, social media, they have their First Amendment rights, and what's the court gonna say? No, you should have been watching them? Right?
I've just said, I mean, I've,
Yeah.
you know,
You know, if my mind tells me, and I know it probably what I shouldn't say, but my mind tells me that if there are so many quagmires that can occur with this, we should just not use the social media and use the website for the purpose it was built. But my understanding is many people prefer social media over a website. Well, let's do our best in getting the messages out to them and let the employees know this is what's allowed or we find acceptable, these items we find non-acceptable. And if it's just a blanket statement, is that, you know, as an employee, you need to abide by these, and reference back to the progressive discipline in the handbook. But even if, using your example, an old town hall committee member does it, they're not an employee. There's nothing that we have them sign for.
but
They
you,
could still go out.
because we don't even have a policy.
But even if you had a policy, we have policies now, employee manual,
Mhm.
okay? Not a member of a board is responsible for that.
I'm just trying to protect us from, because we've seen it too often. I've seen, you know, the company I work for was damaged by it a couple of years ago. You know, you see it all the time. You know, someone is supposed to be the Twitter person for a company, and they go on, they mouth off on something, and it blows up, and you have companies damaged, towns damaged because of careless comments. And I just look at it as, you know,
So can we address that in a policy without being,
Well, what I can do is I can, have town council look at it and tell them we want to condense it down to something simple.
I don't wanna be going back to town council, we're over our legal budget already. Everything we go back to them, it takes them time.
I guess, Dave, would you mind sending, like, your highlighted one, the parts that you have qualms about or whatever, could you send it out so the rest of us could look at it and go, okay? Because, yeah, I mean, I could say, there's ones that, yeah, okay, we can take this out, we can take that out. But if there's ones that you honestly think are not needed, then, I mean, I'd like to know which ones you honestly think are not completely needed.
John, I have what I highlighted here were things for me to address here. It's not an edited version, it's just Okay, contractors, highlight that because contract. Yeah, it also applies to employees of Concord about town in the Ipswich government. And I'm saying, well, if it's a one-way street, is why I highlighted that, okay? I would rather know what are the issues that we're trying to prevent from occurring and get that into a defined policy. You know, I got to, I think it was probably page 3 when I just said, okay, a lot of this is so broad, and then when I got to indemnifications, I said, well, how does that ever happen? Posting frequency. The number of posts per day per social media platform varies. Most posts and responses will occur during regular working hours, 9 a.m. to 4 Monday through Thursday. Does it need to be during certain times when something gets posted? Or is it so that we know who's posting it because they would?
Well, you can always keep an audit trail of who's posting what if they have a separate login, so you can track who the user is.
And should we limit which social media avenues the town would use?
Well, I think again, if anything has to come to the board in order for it to be created, so meaning like we wouldn't create a New Ipswich Twitter page unless the board came to it and said, yes, you can do it, and these are the people that are going to be responsible for it.
That's not true, John. Fire department, police department, rec department never came to the board. The only one that came was
This
when
changes that.
this changes what?
This
would change that they would have to bring it to the Board of Selectmen before they could go off and create a page. That's the whole point of the policy.
For some reason, I don't recall seeing that. Is it in here?
It pretty much says that I'm pretty sure it does. Actually, it would be in the free line, I just realized that.
The county manager?
Right, that should be either the,
I think that should be the Board of Selectmen. Would you be receptive to this? Give me a week or two to go through this and add it into what I would consider like a bulleted. And it may be, could get long-winded, but I would try to make it so that it's not repetitive and concise.
Okay, I'd be fine with that.
And before I bring it back to the board, I'll forward it to Scott, and you can take a pass through it. on the employee handbook, do we need to vote to get
Well, do
that
you wanna
going?
wait to get Sean here to get his input on that?
Did he didn't send you anything?
He did not.
Inspection and transfer station fees.
Are we skipping Old Peterborough?
Oh, I'm sorry. Old Peterborough Road layout.
So under tab 2 is just some pages that I copied out of the Hard Road to Travel book that New Hampshire Municipal Association
Okay,
puts out.
yep,
It kind of gives us a guideline of the steps that would have to be followed to lay out Old Peterborough Road again.
mm-hmm,
It is quite a complex and lengthy process to go through, and eventually has to go to the legislative body, which is town meeting, for final approval. So, also has to go through the planning board, because our planning board has been delegated the subdivision review authority. So they would have to have an opportunity for input as well. We also have to notify the landowners that would be affected, and there is a piece in there that says you have to get an outside appraiser to appraise the value of the property that you are effectively taking to create the roadway. There is also some title search requirements that have to be done on each of the parcels that you're taking. You even have to go back as much as 20 years of ownership of the property as well. So there is quite a lot here to do. So if we were gonna start down this path, I think that there are certainly some expenses associated with doing this. But we would probably wanna start now if we wanted to have everything lined up for, a town meeting vote in the spring. So, you feel free to take that section home with you and read it through to understand what the steps are. I would expect that the property owners that are gonna be affected would see this as a favorable development and not stand in our way.
Mm-hmm.
But there is still a process that has to.
Yeah, because really what it comes down to is is either we do this or we have to inform one of the owners that her lot is not a buildable lot. Is that correct? That's
Correct.
okay. And it wouldn't become a town maintained road.
So
No.
we're creating a class 6 road, so it's still,
Right, so it's really no additional expense to the townspeople on the road itself. It's just what we have to put out now to make that happen. Okay. I was just confirming that.
so we'll read that and come back to it.
so we talked a little bit about the fee schedule. I don't know if you had a chance
Yeah.
to look at it further.
Well, I had looked at it, but my intent was to, do comparisons, but more importantly, I thought we spoke back on the first, to see what our true cost for operating the building zoning department, and then being able to average out what our permits and costs are to say, are we covering our costs?
So I think actually, at least on the surface, as far as some of the direct costs that we see, I think we're more than covering our expenses for the basic salaries, et cetera, that are involved between building and the land clerk position that we'll be supporting. Yeah, then we'd have to factor in, we've added the new software, which added about $5,000 a year to our costs, to have the building software there for maintenance and support for that. And so there are some other extraneous fees that we'd have to calculate in there to do that. Looking, as I mentioned the last time, looking at the volume of permits and types of permits we did, and the mix always varies, but in relatively conservative numbers, the fee increases that Rick is proposing would add approximately $4,000 to $5,000 a year in revenue based on our current volume of permits. So it's not a huge increase, it's kind of a modest increase.
And that could be substantiated with that's what our new costs for that operation of that software is.
Correct.
On an annual basis. But going back, I don't know if you pulled it out of here, do we have what the revenue to date is? In here,
Yeah,
did that get
I don't,
pulled?
I took that out,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Because and you're saying that with, this is a question, are you saying that if you look at our total costs for the land clerk at, I think you said last time, 50 to 75% of their time, plus Rick's time,
Right.
would be covered by the fees that we currently have in place?
That's the way it looks right now. I mean, I can confirm that for you, but.
If you could, I'd like to at
Yeah.
least be able to know that, and I'd just like to, and I didn't know this was, I should have known that this was gonna be this evening, but I'd like to at least go back and review the comparable.
But I look at it too, is with the increases that we're looking at too, it gives us the opportunity to look at bringing those positions up to, it's not, I look at it as it's not just for the software, which is the easy one to substantiate it with, $5,000, we're bringing about $5,000 in. But if the demand on that department is getting any more, or we're allocating more time to that department from someone who used to do more varied work within the office, then we want to make sure that the fees are covering the ability to give that person an increase so that we can bring them up to a comparable wage as well. Does that
But we
make
did
sense?
that though, we did that last year.
We gave an increase, yes.
Okay,
It wasn't the increase that was suggested or suggested to us, but we did give an increase.
okay,
But I think we should always look at the ability that, that if that department's demanding more time, then that department should be able to pay for the time and pay a comparable wage for it so that we're not losing people.
well, I agree with that, but the flip side of this is being in the industry, knowing that certain years people are busy because the industry is busy.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, when it goes in the opposite direction, we don't want to reduce somebody's rate
Mm-hmm.
or reduce their time. You know, so if we can try and keep that median so that it works in everyone's best interests in both financial markets,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say. And that's what I think if we have, is there a way to pull a report from BMSI on revenues and costs for that department, say for the last 5 years, that we could somehow come
I
up
could
with an
check.
average or something?
Yep. And so we can come up with.
And the other item, and I don't have it in front of me, but on that proposed increase on fees, from memory, he had fee increases on some things and not others. And I'm wondering if it shouldn't be an across-the-board type adjustment. If you're looking to cover costs of X amount of dollars, then do we,
Yeah, there's actually the 17 and the 20 are both in there, so if you wanna do a comparison.
Yeah.
The 20 shows the ones that are increased in red, so if you wanna, in the first section, it'll show which ones he wants to tweak.
And then
Yeah.
17 is behind the blue.
right, but like if you look at the ones in red, an annual maintenance permit, a unfinished garage and sheds, cell towers, water tanks, window awnings, new construction for plumbing, additions and alterations, mechanical, none of those have increases. It's X amount. And all I'm asking is, should they not all be adjusted a little?
Well, I can certainly ask him that. He wasn't in this week yet, unfortunately, another commitment, so I didn't get a chance to.
Or more, the question is, why wouldn't we? If we're trying to recoup costs for software and whatnot, I would think all of these would,
Be impacted.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's one here that I didn't even realize, live training burn of structure, actual costs. I don't know what that means. Fire department charge them to do a
Burn.
training burn?
Potentially.
I don't know that we have that as a policy.
Oh, yeah, because I'm saying they probably
Well-
get paid for training as part of their stipend, so wouldn't whoever it was, wouldn't they have to pay?
See, I've always thought that the fire departments are looking for,
Right. Yeah.
you know, to train, so wouldn't have thought that that would have even fallen under the,
That's something to look at.
yeah.
the building, I just have the transfer station, which is the yellow sheet at the very back of that section. So I talked to Peter about the transfer station fees, and, you know, his immediate concern was that increases sometimes change people's behavior, in that if they go up too much, then they start looking for other places to dispose of their trash, like on the side of the road.
Mhm.
So he's sensitive to the fact that, you know, some increases might actually prevent people from using the transfer station, and look for other means to dispose. His suggestion was that if we were gonna tweak fees, that we might wanna tweak the bag fees, raise the cost of the bags slightly. And he wouldn't wanna see a big increase, just again, using the same rationale that if you raise it too much, that it discourages people from using the proper means to dispose of their trash.
When was the last time we changed a decal fee?
See, having gone down there and what, I wouldn't be in favor of changing the bags or the decal. Where I see we are losing money is on the, what I'm gonna just call construction debris. The stuff that goes into the dumpster that somebody needs to pay for. I truly believe we could do better if somebody was focused on covering that. And I realize we only have 2 people there, but so many times it appears that people are dumping, getting in the vehicle and leaving, you know? And that's where I think we need to
Well,
look
yes,
at
I mean, those 2 guys have to cover a big area.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and that's why I had always been trying to ask Peter if there's not a way to rearrange that so that you get it covered. At one time, matter of fact, it was with Gary, I've been talking
Oh, yeah.
and he was saying, you know, the best way of doing it is to have somebody at the gate. So when they're coming through, what have you got? You know? This is what it's gonna cost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, versus somebody trying to run around back and forth and see who's dumping and who's not. I think it would help.
I am curious just when the last time was we adjusted the decal. I don't think we've adjusted decal since I moved here. I think it's been $40 forever.
And that's a 2-year decal.
Right.
I'm trying to think when, I think, I remember having this conversation on select board with George.
Yeah. And the only reason I'm saying that is, I mean, if you look at what the competition is, I think you pay $25 a month to have Shaw pick up. And you get like 2 cans.
Yeah, but that, to some people, is such a convenience.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, we're charging $20 for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Raise it to $50, from 40 to 50. So I'm not saying it has
But
to
what's
be a
that gonna
huge
get you?
increase. I don't know. I mean, I look as what's demo gonna get you?
I think that's where,
You know, I look at a lot of this as, I mean, I look at some of these things, I was like, yeah, that's in a garbage bag. Why is that even on here? That's in a garbage bag
Oh.
and it's going in the,
yeah,
why are we even wasting it? Computer wires, that's in a garbage bag. A computer mouse, that's
Yeah.
in a garbage
Yeah.
bag.
yeah.
Most of this, if it fits in a garbage bag, it's in a garbage bag, and they paid, you know, it was with everything else and it went in the garbage. You know, I look at so much of this and it's not even happening.
Yeah.
That list
Yeah.
hasn't been updated in quite a while.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have washers or dryers on it. Very common things.
Right. Yeah, because I just recently remember someone posting, like, you know, someone wanna come get this scrap, or I'm gonna bring it to the dump, how much will that cost me? And they're like, someone's like, I don't even know.
If someone wanted to drop off a washing machine and say, I'm not gonna pay you, there's not a lot we can do because it's not on the list.
Right,
They could argue the point, if you wanted to be charged for it, it should be on the list.
Well, it could
It
be,
hasn't happened.
it could be considered a small appliance.
That's what we've been
Yeah,
using, sir.
yeah.
yeah,
$10 for
You
a
know-
small appliance, but
To me, a washing machine, I hate to see it, but if it were me, I think I'd be just backing my truck up to the metal dumpster and dumping it in. It's a metal,
but like you said, you're getting $10 for a washer or a dryer, but you're getting $20 for a stove.
let's put the stoves.
and
Yeah.
a 50-inch TV is the same price as a 25-inch TV.
Yeah.
It's 25-inch or larger.
But our cost to get rid of it is what?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I think electronics, we're paying by the container
Yeah.
load. You know, I think it's whatever fits in there, so
Right.
Peter, I think, has tried to average it out.
I think that was last updated in 2010 or 2011, that list. The bottom
Do you
of it
think
is
any
the
chance
sign.
they put a date on here?
No, there is no date.
No.
I looked.
Yeah, I looked too, cause,
It's on the very bottom.
We can make sure the next one has a date on it though,
yeah,
and what the effective date is.
yeah. So,
Well, I can certainly ask Peter on some of these items, how many we actually collect of any of these things.
yeah.
TV sets are a big one, you know, 55-inch TV.
Oh, especially,
takes up a lot
But
of
Steve,
computer
you-
space.
especially the old TVs, people are getting rid of, they're getting rid of the big console TVs and the big deep one, and now everyone's just going to the flat screen, so sooner or later, that TV thing's that'll be probably one of your smaller ones, but, yeah.
Having been down there the short time that you've been there, is how often can you be doing something and somebody backs up to the demo bin and unloads and drives off?
It happens.
Yeah.
And if I see them, I'm not gonna go chasing after somebody, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna get into a fist fight if someone doesn't wanna pay. They know
Yeah.
they're supposed to.
see, and that's why if we could get Peter on board with stationing the,
Third person?
I don't know that you would need the third person
If
if one of them is up at the gate with the booth that we have to collect the revenue at that point. If
Yeah.
somebody comes in with a pickup truck load of whatever, okay, this is gonna go down there and it's, you know, gonna cost you X amount, collect it at that point, and then the only concern, as I'm talking out loud about it, is causing a backup there, but,
If you could develop 2 lanes, one lane for trash only and one lane for appliances and demolition.
yeah, yeah,
You would be able to do something with that, but
maybe that Y would actually come in handy.
I don't, agree that one person stationed at the gate, the other person would have enough time to do everything. There are certain times where you are running like a madman there, even when there's not someone in demolition. You can get 10 cars, 10 people trying to unload things, pay for one bag at a time. The other thing is the receipts. If we could come up with some automated way of doing the receipts instead of having to handwrite them out every time, writing out $1.25 or $1.50 receipt takes time, and in the meantime, you're running back and forth.
Good point.
Software
How do we
could
automate it?
easily be, software could easily be written automatically. You hit a button, it's $1.50 bag, 2 bags. And I know we can get the software written free to the town. I know a guy that works in the dump that's a certified Oracle DBA and software programmer who would volunteer his services.
I'm just trying to think if there's just a pre-canned software program.
There may be also,
Yeah.
yes. But if you want something custom written, it can be done. So your receipts look the same, and no one has to make adjustments. But the list should be updated.
Yeah.
That I agree with.
Yeah, cause I'm looking at passenger tire costs you $3, but if you get rid of a lamp that's over 12 inches, that's only $4. So, And I'm thinking, isn't it harder to get rid of tires? I mean, I realize we have to do a truckload, but I would think a tire is more costly to get rid of than a lamp. So just, yeah, something to look at. I mean, it doesn't have to go up a lot, but I'm guessing, I mean, obviously we don't want tires just,
Yeah,
but at the same point, I mean, think where our costs are to get rid of that stuff.
but again, I know I have been there at times where I have seen people drive to the trailer,
Mm-hmm.
throw them, and just keep driving,
Yeah,
you know, and that way there, if
yeah, there's some way to
to,
stop people to the
Yeah.
gate.
yeah.
The list also says for the demolition, it's $30 a yard. I don't know if that's a typo, but a pickup truck full level at the top is a cubic yard, which is 3 yards. I don't know if it's $90 a pickup truck full, or if you meant to be $30 a pickup truck full. But the way it's written, it's $90 a pickup truck full. Unless you intended it to be a cubic yard.
Yeah, that would have been a cubic yard, if it says per cubic yard, right?
It says per yard, $30 a yard.
$30 a yard,
I'm assuming it meant cubic yard.
yeah, cubic yard,
It's written as yard.
yeah.
Because I haven't charged anyone $90 a pickup truck yet. I took it as a cubic yard, but it's not what it says.
Well, a pickup truck would only be,
A full-size 8-foot bed filled level to the rails is a 1 cubic yard.
52, is how much?
It's approximately 1 cubic yard, 3 yards or 1 cubic yard, one big excavator bucket full.
Yeah, yeah, it should be more than a cubic yard. I think you're closer to, you're just under 2. Most of the rails, I think, are like, what, 18 inches,
About 20.
20? So for my easy math, 1.5 times 32 is 48, 27 cubic feet in a yard, so take out your wheel wells. But, I mean, there's times where, to me, if somebody's making a payment, okay, they're making a payment if we're off a little bit. It's more of the ones that,
They don't make a pickup.
yeah, they don't, and they just come in and they think, oh, it's free, and that's, and if we need, we should probably look at it and whether or not, with some rearrangement and having a third person, whether or not, at least then we'd be picking up more revenues.
Mm-hmm.
So,
If they could make it a separate entrance and exit for just the construction debris.
well, I'm just thinking is that when you come through the gate and you have to turn right, we have the Y there,
Yes.
where you could send demo this way, regular trash this way, you know, and it would allow you enough space if you had to queue.
Even the demolition, right now, it's on the same level as regular trash. If they went down and under, they could dump their demolition on the ground, and they could use the big bucket excavator we have down there to fill up the dumpster with it. That way you'd be totally isolating the construction demolition.
Yeah, but you've got people then going down what I call the one-way. That's where people exiting are coming up,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is very true.
yeah. And I think just direct them to the dumpster, be less work for attendants to be handling, even though it's with a loader, but,
It was just a thought.
yeah, no. Your other thought was a good thought about, you know, somehow looking at automating receipts, if there's a way of.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. Thanks for your input.
you to look at this, or do you want us?
Well, I just wanted to, you know, Peter and I are gonna be continuing our dialogue on this,
Yeah,
but, you know, I think the bigger issue was on the other side was the disposal cost issue. And, so Peter and I, having discussions about what to do with that, and the fact that a lot of the markets for recyclables is pretty much evaporated.
have you looked into when, our current contract is up?
I have not. I have not.
Can you look into that?
I will, yep, because, you know, Peter and I talked about, you know, what other vendors are out there. And he said the last time that, they went out to bid, that they only got one response.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Times before that, we got multiple, so we've gotta,
yeah. Well, the market's changed too.
Yeah.
And part of the challenge in New Hampshire is that disposal sites are, you know, drying up.
few and far between.
Which means that anybody that would contract would have to haul it out of state in some cases, and that drives up the costs. And he said that's one of the reasons why I think Waste Management decided not to bid the last time, is because when they realized how far they had to haul it, they knew they couldn't be competitive, so they didn't bother submitting a proposal. And their pricing anyway, we used Waste Management in Wilton, and we also use Slocum for some items.
I know in our business, we have used them almost exclusively because they were more competitive. And that's what I'm saying,
I'm
it's
just telling you what Peter told me. I mean,
Yeah.
I know in Wilton they were,
Yeah.
Waste Management was
Yeah.
pricey.
That's
And we
right.
certainly have a lot more volume over there than here in New Ipswich, because we were doing 5 towns.
Mm-hmm. And there's no other, I believe even now, there's still no sticker fees or anything in Wilton.
There are no sticker fees. Stickers are free, but they have a schedule similar to this for certain items.
Mhm.
And what they did with construction debris was put in scales, and they actually weigh it, because there's, depending on what the debris is, if it's roofing materials,
Mm-hmm.
a cubic yard of roofing material is a lot
Yeah.
heavier than a cubic
Yeah.
yard of some other debris.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided that they were losing money on that, so they ended up putting in scales, and I think when I left, you know, I'm talking two years ago now, they were charging, I think, $109 a ton for demo material.
That's,
It's probably higher than that now, as the cost of.
well, that's high in the first place, but,
Actually, it wasn't, compared
well-
to other surrounding towns, we're charging more than that.
and again, I'm just saying
Yeah.
from what we pay in the
Yeah.
private sector
Yeah.
per ton.
Yeah.
Last time I was buying was at 85.
Yeah.
Now that's probably gone up since then, but,
Yeah.
what I've been more curious are the scales. Because years ago, we had looked at it and I thought we could just use, scales similar to what the state police use to weigh overloaded trucks.
Mhm.
And we had a resident that contested that, well, those aren't legal to use for weighing construction debris. So I don't know what the.
Yeah, no, we used a full bed scale.
Okay.
In fact, it's very similar to the one that Greenville Recycling is using. We actually went and looked at theirs before we purchased ours, so
Yeah.
it's a similar setup. When all was said and done, and we ran into ledge, we ran into some other problems, it was about $73,000 to have them installed.
Mm.
And then you have to train a couple of your guys to be scale operators, so there's a state test that's required
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
And, that included electrical, we also included a scale house that you know, that was all part of the $73,000 to install. And I think it was Farnsworth Scales out of Vermont is the ones who installed both Greenville's and ours.
And you could collect a lot of,
You could collect a lot of revenue though.
yeah.
Well, that was the point. I mean, we knew we were, you know, same thing. How do you estimate?
Right.
How do you estimate and know that you're covering, at least covering your costs?
Yeah, yeah.
And we said, well, we pay by the ton to dispose of it, so if we charge a few bucks more than what it's costing us to dispose it, that covers the cost of the manpower and the scales. And like I said, we, at 109 compared to what other towns around us were charging for the same thing. That wasn't our cost, by the way. That 109 was our revenue coming in, that's what we were charging.
Yes, yeah.
So it wasn't costing us 109 to dispose of it. But the problem we had in Wilton was because we were 5 towns, because people weren't diligent at looking for stickers, is we had every contractor in the world coming and dumping their stuff because they knew that we were
Economical.
the cheap, the place to get away with it, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided, yeah, we're done with this game.
And I think that is what's happening here,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know.
So, but yeah, I mean, we set it up so that the scales would eventually pay for themselves.
Over what period?
Probably
Although
over.
you've got, yeah, like you're saying, you've got a few towns.
Yeah, I think it was like 3.5 year payback on the scales is what we figured. And they have about a 20-year life, although they do have to be calibrated, obviously, since you're charging a fee.
So you'll get back to us on this
Yeah.
schedule?
Yeah, Peter and I will continue to work on it. See what we
What are
can put.
you basing it on? What's Peter basing it on? What's he,
Well, you know, like I said, mostly, well, you know, he's trying to balance what we charge, because he doesn't, again, he doesn't wanna discourage people from legal disposal and make it so cost intensive that they want to dispose of it by the side of the road instead. But that being said, I think we're probably not covering our costs on some of these items for sure.
can we edit, as John says, edit that list down to,
Well, that's the other question I'll have for Peter is what things are we actually collecting on?
Right.
Because we could probably simplify the
Yeah,
schedule.
and like you said, then there's other things that aren't on there and we're charging
Right,
not enough.
so I think that needs to be adjusted as well.
And I don't think you have to get, like, I think having stove, dishwasher, like small
Lot-
appliance, large appliance.
appliance, right?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I didn't see on here, and it has no disposal effect, but I thought that any product containing a refrigerant had to have had a sticker that it's been evacuated.
Well, this does say, on the refrigerator, it does say that the Freon has to
Oh,
be removed.
no, Freon, but not on the air conditioners. Okay. Fax machines, think they still make them?
I don't think they make them. I think you can still, I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
they still make them. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some places.
I think I have an old brother fax machine at home somewhere.
I used to have one.
Really?
Hmm.
Alright,
I find it funny that my printer says it faxes. No, it scans and emails, but
Yeah,
but no, it'll dial up a number if you really go through the hassle. But then most people have e-faxes now anyway.
yeah.
So.
old new business, LED street light RFP,
Right, so the contract is signed with Affinity, so that's done. They did give us a spreadsheet, if you look under tab 4, just trying to show us what the payback is, and actually the number has changed because Eversource increased their rebate by $2,800. So this shows, the initial numbers that the proposal was based on with the $11,200 rebate from Eversource, showed a 1.58 year payback. It's actually 1.37 now, because the rebate went up. So.
Where are you seeing the numbers? I see a
Wait,
chart of
so,
so
yeah.
many.
Yeah,
Way over
right over to the far right there,
the circle.
where it says simple payback.
Okay,
Yeah, that's actually 1.37 now instead of 1.58. I had to do a manual calculation when the rebate went up. But the contract signed, I think in the AP tonight was the 50% deposit on the contract so they can get going. They're gonna have about 40 totes worth of materials coming. I already talked to Peter about places to store them in the DPW garage. We don't know whether we're gonna do it in this garage or the old DPW garage, but, you know, obviously the contractor's gonna have to have a place where they can get access to them to install them. The start date is anticipated to be November 1st, and the completion date will be before March 31st, is what the contract states.
why so long?
Well, it may not take that long.
Huh.
You know, this is just,
In case it snows.
yeah, weather related, there's, potential issues.
What about the issue of reviewing those locations we talked about that?
So there's gonna be a pre-construction meeting.
Okay,
So, Eversource did provide them a new ledger, and for some reason, instead of 112, we now have 113 fixtures that are already existing. Plus, we were doing some swaps where we were deleting and adding. So we have to go through that with their project manager. So we'll get all that settled before, they start the project. So that's, they already gave us their certificate of insurance, we got their W-9, we're gonna be setting them up as a vendor. So we should be pretty good to go there.
tax deeded properties will fall under non-public, or is
Yeah,
that something?
I just,
that-
that top list is kind of our
Yeah.
rolling list that you wanted me to keep, so there's gonna be some redundancy at times.
Okay, Hubbard Pond Road paving leads me to a question I had, is where is, Peter, Bobby, subcontractor with our final costs on paving?
Yeah, that I don't know
Well, Peter should have the tickets, doesn't he?
yet. He may, I haven't seen.
Could you check
Yeah.
on that?
The, under the LED streetlight, he also had the police station. And the reason I have that on there is, the Masiello group reached out again about, extending the lease on that building.
Mm-hmm.
And, so my question back to them was, is that based on a new owner or the existing owner? And it sounds like, they wanna have a discussion with the new owner or new potential owner included in that discussion. So I, sent an email back to Bill Hutwell, who's the, real estate, person at Masiello, asking what time frame he was talking about and when he expected that sale to be completed, if it's gonna be completed, et cetera. And if this is, is this imminent, or is it gonna be dragging on for months? The problem that we have is the current lease expires on December 31st.
Well, I
Yeah.
thought there's something in the lease about renewing, and there's a time period for it, so whether it's a new owner or an existing owner, we should just be pursuing it that way and let the owner tell us, yes, I wanna sign, or no, I don't.
Yeah, so, well, the other side of that is, obviously, if they wanna drag that out, I don't know what their sale, strategy is over there, or how fast that's gonna move. But we certainly need to know where we're gonna be. And so, depending on what his response is on how fast he thinks this is gonna happen, I think we need to start looking at what our contingency is gonna be if for some reason we can't negotiate a lease as of December 31st. I think we need to seriously start looking at potential second locations.
Do you have a copy of the lease in here?
I don't.
You don't. Can we get a copy of that so that we can know what the terms of that are and when we need to do it, and if it's something that I'd rather have 3 months to have to come up with that
Yep.
plan B than 3 weeks.
I agree.
Yeah. I remember last time I
don't know if
looked
we're
at
gonna
it,
have that luxury,
it wasn't written well for our benefit, in my opinion. As far as like, there's nothing that says they can't walk in and go, yeah, we're not signing this. You know, but I don't know what that time, like what they have to give us for leeway on that, so.
Well, if we could,
Cause it could be, I mean, you don't want to, but it could be September 30th, they could go and go, yeah, we're not signing your lease December 31, if it's a 90-day.
say that again?
If they have to give us 90 days,
Yep.
they could basically look at it September 30 and go, yeah, we're not signing the lease come
Mhm.
December 30, like, there's no extension,
Right,
you know,
Right.
so.
but that's what I'm saying, I'd like
Yeah.
to know that sooner than later.
Just cause you did bring up the Hubbard Pond thing, still no rocks in those culverts, which means the sand is
Yeah.
going, filling them in.
Yeah, my bigger concern with that is that, we never took a vote as a board on spending the, whatever, tens of thousands of dollars it costs to complete that beyond Pine Road all the way out to the Ridgetown line.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm concerned about the process where, you know, honestly, I went down the day where they were paving it, expecting them to be ending at Pine, and then seeing that they had already gone down and were on their way back.
Mm-hmm.
For me, as the town administrator, it was a situation where I had no idea that there had been an authorization to
Yeah.
pay beyond that.
Right, I think our last piece to Peter was keep an eye on the money and take it down as far as the money will take us.
And that's what we discussed in the meeting here,
Yeah.
was for Peter to track where we are with costs. And if we had the money available, continue down
Okay, yeah,
Hubbard Pond.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you,
Cause it was basically, it was definitely do all of Benny Hill, definitely finish Ashby, and you take Hubbard Pond until the money ran out.
and it was to do that one last, because now we know what we spent on the other two.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
And if
but
we-
that's, and I remember that's why David,
Yeah.
was like, well, did we have the money?
Let's find.
But the reason I'm more concerned about those rocks in the culvert, however he's filling them or whatever it is because they did a great job on the road, no complaints there, but it is, like, if you're not used to it,
mm-hmm.
you got a soft shoulder coming off there, and now you have a soft shoulder into a hole,
Yeah,
so.
well, I know he's doing the shoulder work on, Benny Hill right now. He's already
Okay.
completed the shoulder work on, Lower Ashby, so I'm sure when he gets
Yeah.
to Hubbard Pond. that's
And they
when he'll
did,
start
and they
taking
did do some, like,
pictures.
they went by and they did, like, on the driveway entrances and stuff, they
Mhm.
smoothed them out, they did a nice job. Haven't heard anybody complaining, in fact, a couple people that my wife knows that posted pictures, and like, they never thought they'd see it in their life, and this
Yeah.
is so nice, and it's
Yeah.
very quiet on my road now.
Yeah.
I have just as much traffic, but it is very quiet. But I happen to have someone that was coming to the house said that, they're waiting to hear that call on the radio of, someone in a hole.
June 2nd meeting.
June 2nd?
June 2nd, John made a motion to award the paving to Allstate Paving and qualify that Hubbard Pond Road be paved last, that we can determine how far we can pave. PO should be issued for the plus or minus $565,000 value, not Peter's $585,000. Was that culvert?
There's actually two of them.
Approximately, so I can,
Probably, so I'm thinking maybe about half mile up, a quarter mile up Hubbard Pond on the right-hand side.
and where's the other one? Well, are they together?
One's maybe 100 yards in front of that one.
Okay.
Because the other culvert is beyond my house, goes past the road, so it's not an issue.
I'll just ask him
Yeah.
what his plan is on that.
Yeah.
Budget process, are we good on what we're doing?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that all 4 members of the Finance Advisory Committee from last year are gonna be returning.
Nice.
Okay, good.
So I confirm that. They're gonna wanna do some things via Zoom, so we're gonna be Zooming.
Thank you.
Probably our meetings for the entire budget
Careful.
season.
Let's have a discussion on that. I've got that as a
Okay,
item. Salt shed RFP. I
yeah,
had
so.
that on my,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's ready if, depending on what we wanna do with it, is it gonna be something we're gonna attempt to do this year?
we should be attempting to do that. What I didn't look up, and I don't know if you have it, is what was our estimated cost gonna be for that?
So the bids that we had were, I think, ranged from like 55 to 85,000, depending on the vendor.
But didn't we have an RFP that didn't go out?
It did not go up.
Did not go out, okay.
Right.
And then we had the cost for the,
The blocks.
The
for
blocks.
foundation.
and what were those?
I'd have to look it up.
I just wanna make sure, if
Yeah.
we send out the RFP, knowing now approximately where the final lighting cost is gonna be,
Mhm.
we have the unanticipated funding left over from last year that was gonna be allocated for the
Right.
salt shed. And with this year's anticipated funding,
Right.
will those two combined cover that cost?
Wasn't there something we just discussed a couple weeks ago, though, that you were worried that we were gonna have to spend the money on? Was it because our legal line was so far over?
Well, I'm thinking the legal line and the DPW budget are gonna end up coming right out of the,
Right. So
Budget.
the other,
Okay.
yeah, so the other concern that I have is based on the numbers that were shared with me by Roger and Carleen is revenues are now down by about $500,000. Before they were down by about 200,000. Now they're saying mostly due to property tax collection that, and I'm gonna confirm this with Jessica, but right now, we're seeing a year-to-year shortfall of about $500,000 in collections. So I need to dig into that with Jessica a little bit more to understand, and that's all property tax.
it's all property tax?
All property tax. We're actually ahead not by much, but we're ahead on motor vehicle registrations for this year, year over year. So there, I have to just get an understanding of why the property tax.
And how much is that number again?
The number
500?
is, yeah, call it $500,000, it's a little less than that right now. So we started to get into this discussion because we're concerned about whether we'll actually have enough cash flow through the end of the year to cover our expenses. And right now, it's honestly, based on the numbers that was shared with me yesterday, is gonna be very tight.
Can we get a full accounting of what we have in all the accounts that we have and what our anticipated costs are through?
Yep. I sure can do that, because I'm curious myself. And last on that list was Halloween. So there's some discussion amongst towns right now on what they're gonna do about Halloween, whether it's on, whether it's off. Obviously, COVID-19 concerns. And I thought I'd put it out there now,
Good point.
so that we can, if we're gonna communicate it to the community, the earlier we have a decision, the better.
My opinion, put it on. People that don't want to participate, turn the lights off. Kids, they can all wear masks.
Pun intended?
Pun intended. I look at it's. I know that there's other groups that are looking to do alternate type things, which some groups already do. Like the trunk or treats
Yeah,
and things like
yeah.
that. So, I have no problem letting Halloween happen as is, and those people that don't want to participate, we understand, we respect you, but it's one of those easy ones. Turn your lights off, and the kids don't come to the door. Because there's
I'm just
so
trying to
many.
think, are there any other ramifications, anything?
I don't think so, because there's so many other ways. I mean, people can have their stuff pre-bagged. The kids come up, they hold a bag out, you drop a baggie inside a bag. I think there's so many ways that it can be done safely, and I think, and by giving people such a heads up that yes, I think the opportunity is there to let the kids have this.
Just trying to think, is there anything different that the town should be doing to?
I jokingly had an op, one.
You're on camera, don't
Yeah, I know, I understand that. You just have the kids stand on the lawn, and everyone who's just drives by and throws stuff at them. It's a good year to have candy apples, But I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I guess if you look at it from that point, is that I guess if somebody doesn't want them coming, if the lights are off, so,
October 31st, it's a Saturday.
no, it's a Saturday.
It's also a full moon. It's the second full moon of the month too.
Halloween will go forth. Saturday, and the hours will be 5 to 7.
Yeah.
Okay, before we go into non-public,
I had one.
oh, go right ahead.
We spoke last week. Did Mark give you the other quotes he had for the oil prices?
So the, yeah, so Cheer, we only had, I could only find one other, which was Cheer Deli, which was 179.9. Hafner's was 169.9.
What about Fraticelli though? We had asked if he would reach out to them. They had priced us previously. And
Yeah.
they were the,
I'll ask him.
so that's all I'm
Yes.
looking at, is that I don't think Mark knows who we've gone to in the past. If you
Okay.
don't reach out to them, you're not gonna get a price.
I mean, the price we got is good, but yeah, as long as we have the 3 too, then we've also done our due diligence on it.
Yeah.
That's the only one I just.
Okay. Scott, I know this one's, I sent you that email about, telephone service providers.
Right. I did not have a chance to dig into it. Honestly, I don't even know how many lines we have here. I went through the files to see if we had a contract in place with Comcast on the whole phone system for the IP telephony. I could not find one. I mentioned it to Tim today. He thought Debbie might have it.
Yeah, Debbie's the one that had done
Okay.
the work on it.
All right, so I'll find out if she's got a copy of the contract to find out what the conditions are there, find out what services we have, so that I can know what to ask another company,
Mhm.
if we wanna duplicate what we have.
But I mean, couldn't another company come in and evaluate what we have? I'm thinking.
Well, you have to give them a starting point on, I don't even know how many lines and how many phone numbers, we have. So I need to get my arms around that before I can ask somebody to provide me a quote.
I don't remember it being that
Oh, I'm sure.
erroneous.
Yeah, I know Deb did all the legwork on
Yeah.
it last time. I'm sure she had to do quite a bit in
Yeah, I
order to
mean,
get
yeah,
them
Okay,
the
but I
answers.
mean,
the
we-
old town hall, for
Right.
example, just to run the alarm system.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We got one at
Yeah.
the transfer station. I
think-
don't know about Parks and Recs.
I
how
think
many
Parks
they
and Rec
There's
has
one
at
at the
least
pool.
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
No, there's only one at the pool.
and they don't have an alarm line as well.
No.
Okay.
Uh,
Police station's got a couple.
and even this building here, I thought we've only had one dial-in line, and then it goes to the different extensions.
Right, then we have to understand, what services each location has from an IP telephony standpoint, as far as call forwarding, automated attendant, all of those things have to be,
But that would be a
Spell that.
whole new system that we would have to put in, because I believe the systems we have now in place were,
Comcast. owns it,
yeah. That's why I thought if Consolidated or somebody came in, they could see what we have and.
Yeah.
The fuel bid results we just spoke about, optional internet service provider. And this was something I spoke to John about and Bob last week, that we should at least probably have it on the radar. It, for voting, is in that booklet that the Attorney General sent to all the selectmen about voting. we're supposed to have I think they called it continued operations plan in effect and registered with them, which is nothing more than what we would do if we couldn't use the high school, let's say. You know, what parameters we have in place for an alternative voting area. So we should try and put that on our list to discuss with Bob. Final cost for the street lighting, the RFP for the salt shed. That's all I had on my notes.
Zoom, you wanna talk about?
Oh, that's in the email. I saw the email request from John about having selectmen's meetings and whatever other meetings.
Yeah.
And I saw your response about, well, when we do the budgets, that we are gonna have it on Zoom. I have no problem with doing Zoom.
Yep.
At all. But I know like last time we're asking, somebody had Debbie in here doing it, and I don't think that we should be paying somebody to come in to do a Zoom. If there's a volunteer or if there's a way of just turning it on and letting it run.
Right, and that's it. We can turn it on, let it run. We can mute the people that are on. Then get to that point. Are there any questions of this budget before we close it? Yes or no? All right, and go on. I think
Yeah.
we can do that. And like I said, I can bring in mine, so that we can put it on the TV, and that way if they do have a question, we can
So-
hear them clear, but.
Yeah, so the purpose of it is that we have finance advisory committee members that want to participate via Zoom. They don't wanna physically be here. So it's gonna be very interactive, with, with them, let alone
Okay.
anybody else that might be in the audience. And as we're going through the budget season, we may have, board chairs, or commission chairs that don't wanna physically be here to discuss their budgets and wanna do it via Zoom. So again, it's gonna have to be very interactive, and managing that process can be cumbersome without a person here to do that.
Well, I know we're short right now on staff. I'm sure Debbie's pulling more than her workload, and to put another task out there. We can social distance in this building. We have ample room from previous budget sessions, so I think it's more of a convenience for people, you know, to do it from home than to do it here in person. So if the public wants to participate, I think by having the computer on, that would work. How many of the members of the budget committee are electing to do it via Zoom?
I don't know.
Okay.
My thought is that it was 2 out of the 4. But I'll confirm that with Mark.
Okay, good. Is there another email that you
Yeah, there was another one about, but it's,
oh, yeah,
yeah, someone has, it has to
Yeah.
do with, employee.
yeah. Okay.
Alright, do you have anything else before we go?
No,
Scott?
I'm
did
good.
you see this that you just dropped off?
No.
This is a dated one, 10/19, so I don't know if this matches
Okay.
the one that's in the folder here.
All right.
Motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A3.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.